أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to our class today. I hope and pray that everyone is doing very well. Jazakumullah for joining the class on time. We will begin with our opening prayer. So let's have a student to the mic now. Can we have 3119, please, to the mic?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Okay, let's start with Dawood. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the rejected.
Good. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful.
Excellent. ربي علمني ما هو خير عندك.
ربي علمني ما هو خير عندك.
Excellent.
Oh my Lord, teach me what is best for me in your knowledge.
Excellent. Where's this prayer from?
Tazkirah.
Tadhkira. Excellent. Good. Well done. Jazakumullah for coming to the mic and reciting that for us today. Allah Hafiz. Okay, just a reminder about class etiquettes and rules. Please make sure that you're abiding by all the rules. So make sure you're wearing clean clothes and heads are covered appropriately. You've done with your wudu. Also make sure that you're sitting in a nice and quiet place with your parents and also using your correct IDs. Okay, so there's some of you that are logged in with just your name or your device's name. So make sure you change that to the correct ID that you were issued with. Please, Jazakumullah. Okay, so today is class number 35. We are going to be continuing with the rule of Waqf. So there's different rules of Waqf that we'll be covering slowly in these classes, inshallah. You covered some yesterday as well. So we are going to now look at rules number 4 to 7. Rules number 4 to 7 of Waqf and how to pause. And of course, you can always refer to the Talimul-Qur'an book, and page number 85 is where you can find these rules of Waqf, so if you would like to have a look at them again. And this is one of those rules that you will need to keep on having a look at again and again, because you need to memorize these rules. And of course, it will come with practice as well, but it will also come with you having a look at it lots of times so that you can become familiar with them and make sure that you completely understand the rules. And then in the breakout rooms at 1:15, you'll be covering Surah Al-Ma'idah verses 68 to 71 with your teacher. Okay, so let's have a look at the rules of Waqf that we are looking at today. Okay, so just to remind you all of what Waqf is, Waqf means to pause or stop, and during the recitation, pausing at the end of a meaningful sentence or a verse with a break of breath is called Waqf. And the correct way of pausing at various types of Quranic words is explained below. So you've covered rules number 1 to 3. So you've learned that if there's a fatha, a kasra, or a dhamma on top of a letter where you want to pause at, then that fatha, kasra, dhamma will turn into a sukoon when you want to pause, okay? So in this table, you can see on the right side in this column over here, all the examples of words where you could possibly pause at, and then the explanation of how you pause is over here in this box, and then how you would pause and how it would be pronounced as written in these boxes. Okay, so in continuation, you would read the words like this, and in pausing, you would read the words like this. Okay, and by continuation, we mean if you were to continue with your recitation and not take a pause. Okay, all right, so let's cover rules number 4 to 7. So these are the next 4 rules. Okay, now if you come across a word where you'd like to take a pause, okay, and the last letter of that word has a kasratain underneath it, or a tanween of kasra. So this is tanween and it's kasra, so it's a tanween of kasra, or you can also say kasratain. Then what will happen is that kasratain will change into a sukoon, as you can see over here in this box on the left. So in continuation, so if you were not to take a pause, this is how you would read this word. Makhtumin. Makhtumin. Okay. Now, if you were to take a pause after this word, and what you do when you want to take a pause is you look at the last letter and the sign or stroke on that letter. So the stroke on this letter, on the last letter of this word, meme, is kasratain. And as we have just read, that if it's a kasratain, then that kasratain will turn into a sukoon. So in pausing, this word will now be read as makhtum. Okay, so you still pronounce the waw mud, but now you just add the sound at the end because of the meme sakin. Makhtum. Okay, so here the difference. This is makhtumin. But now that we want to pause and stop after this word, it will change into makhtum. The kasratain will change into a sukoon. Okay, so that is rule number 4. I hope everybody has understood it, that if you see a kasratain as the last letter of the word that you want to stop at, then that kasratain will change into a sukoon. Okay, let's have a look at the next rule. The next rule is that tanween of dhamma will change into sukoon. So if the word that you want to take a pause at is like this and the last letter has a dhammatain on top of it, or tanween of dhamma, then that tanween of dhamma will change into a sukoon. Okay, so this word on its own without stopping will be Qur'anun. Okay, so this is, I'm reciting this as I see it. This is Qur'anun. Okay, now if I want to pause after this, okay, I look at the last letter and I look at what sign it is on it. It's a dhammatain. Then we've just read that dhammatain will change into a sukoon. So this word, if you want to pause, will change into Qur'an. Qur'an. Okay, so the dhammatain has changed into a sukoon when we want to pause. So how I've recited this is that I've recited it stretching the alif for 2 counts because of the vertical fatha, and then just added the n sound at the end for the noon sakin. Qur'an. Okay, so one more time. If the last letter of the word that you want to stop at has a dhammatain, then that dhammatain will change into a sukoon. Okay, all right. Let's have a look at rule number 6 now. Rule number 6 is that vertical kasra will change into sukoon. Vertical kasra will change into sukoon. So this is the word that we're using as an example. You can see that the last letter of this word has a vertical kasra underneath it. So this vertical kasra will change into a sukoon when we want to take a pause or stop. Okay? So on its own, this word, without pausing, without stopping, will be read as Rasulihi. Rasulihi. I'm pronouncing the vertical kasra as it is. But if we want to take a pause after this and stop after this word, then this vertical kasra would change into a sukoon, and we will now read this word as Rasulih. Rasulih. Okay. Last this bit is lih. Okay. Lam joins onto the ha sakin. Rasulih. Okay, one more time. Vertical kasra changes into a sukoon when we want to take a pause. So always look at the last letter where you're stopping. If that last letter has a vertical kasra, then that vertical kasra will change into a sukoon. Okay. All right. I hope everybody's following along and listening carefully as I'm going through these. Okay. Okay. Let's now look at rule number 7 of Waqf. Rule number 7 is that inverted dhamma will change into sukoon. Inverted dhamma will change into sukoon. So let's remind ourselves, but inverted dhamma is this stroke over here. It's an upside down dhamma. It's called inverted dhamma. So when the last letter of the word that you want to stop at has an inverted dhamma on it, then that inverted dhamma will change into sukoon. All right. So this word on its own, without stopping, without pausing, in continuation, will be read as Yarahu. Yarahu. Okay, I'm going to stretch for 2 counts because of the inverted dhamma. Now, if you want to take a pause and stop after this, we've just read that the inverted dhamma will change into a sukoon. So now the word will be recited as Yarah. Yarah. Okay. Ra joins onto the ha sakin. Yarah. All right, so that is the rule of number 7. So once again, if the last letter of the word that you want to take a pause at has an inverted dhamma, that inverted dhamma will change into a sukoon. Okay, so you can see that there is a pattern a little bit, that a lot of the rules are that if there is a particular stroke on the letter, the last letter of the word that you want to stop at, it will turn into a sukoon. Okay, so for now, the rules that we have looked at so far, they are all that if the last letter has a certain stroke, then it will turn into a sukoon. So it's simply straightforward. It's pretty straightforward, okay? But now, going forward, we will look at rules where it will be a different rule, okay? Not necessarily that it will turn into a sukoon, okay? So I would really like you all to start memorizing these rules, okay? So rules number 1 to 7 we've covered so far. Start practicing them as well, okay? So I'm going to show you a few examples of how these are found in the Holy Quran as well. So these are a few verses of the Holy Quran in front of you. You can see that we've highlighted the rules that are covered in rules number 4 to 7. So for example, this word over here, this is read as amrin on its own, the word amrin. But if you want to take a pause after this word, the last letter has a kasratain, and we've just read that if the last letter of the word that you want to stop at is kasratain, then it will turn into a sukoon. Okay, so this word, if you want to stop after it, will be recited as amr, amr. Okay, imagine this kasratain turning into a sukoon. So alif joins onto the meme joins onto the ra. Amr. Okay, so there's a big difference in the way that it's recited in continuation compared to how it is when we want to take a pause after it. So that's why it's really important that you start memorizing these rules. Okay, also over here, this is another word where the last letter of this word has a kasra, a vertical kasra underneath it. Okay, so in continuation, this will be recited as عِنْدِهِ. But in pausing, this vertical kasra will change into a sukoon. So this word will be recited as عِنْدِهِ. عِنْدِهِ. Okay, so there is a big difference in the way that is recited in continuation versus how it's recited whilst pausing. So please do start memorizing these rules. Okay, all right, so now it's time for the breakout rooms. So in your breakout rooms, you'll be covering verses 68 to 71 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. All right, so if I can please request if everybody could join the breakout rooms now. Jazakumullah.